Hey there, and welcome back to my Kerbal Space Program for Total Newbies tutorial video series. This is part 2, where we're going to build more rockets and do more cool stuff. First, we want to spend that sweet science we got for our first mission, building our first little tiny but powerful rocket that went and did some experiments. So we're going to head into the Research and Development Facility, where we have a look at our tech tree here. So I know I kind of walked you through this last time, so not basically we're gonna go. There's 2 tech that we need to unlock to kind of get the rest of the tree going. Basic rocketry, which gives us our first liquid fuel engine and the fuel tank to go with it, and a bigger solid fuel booster. So we're going to research that for 5 science, and then engineering, which gives us the thermometer, which is something we will definitely need. It's another science experiment to give us more science data. A couple of antennae, which we don't really need to worry about right now, and a stack decoupler, which allows us to build rockets that can separate in stages, which is going to be super important moving forward. So, boom, 5 science. So we have 38.6 science left. Pretty good. We have a couple of options now at this point. Survivability, which is always a good thing to research when you put it that way. The art and science of landing and walking away from it. So this gives us some things that are pretty important. Heat shields, which you need when you're re-entering the atmosphere, especially at high velocity. It gives us another science experiment, the barometer, which is pretty good because it can give us some more data. A couple of other things, radiator panels and service bays, which are sort of incidental to what we're doing right now. A radial mount parachute, which is somewhat useful, but not the most useful. A drogue chute, which is a parachute you open very high in the atmosphere to kind of slow yourself down. Again, not something we necessarily need, but micro landing struts are also cool. So little space probes, lightweight landers. So this is pretty good all around. I think we're going to grab this. And we have 23.6 science left. This is good because the barometer will let us do more things. And general rocketry, our choices are now between general rocketry and stability. General rocketry gives us another type of liquid fuel engine, a bigger solid fuel booster, and a bigger fuel tank. Stability, which we can also buy if we want, gives us an aerodynamic nose cone, which is good. It cuts down on our drag. Some winglets, which are really fairly useful for control, and the radial decoupler, which allows you to build rockets where you can shed, I guess, stages from the side, similar to how the space shuttle's solid rocket boosters separate off. So, of these 2, I'm gonna go and say, at least at this point, probably the most useful thing is going to be general rocketry, because I kind of want this bigger booster so we can get a little further up into space. So we're going to go ahead and research that, and we're going to head back to the main menu. All right, let's get back in the rocket designing seat here and make a new rocket using our newly unlocked components. All right, here we are back in the vehicle assembly building. So you can see our newly unlocked parts. We've got our fuel tanks, some new engines, that big old solid fuel booster. So I wanted to show you guys, now that you're unlocking more parts, you can search through them here to find a part you're looking for specifically by name, and you can sort them by mass, by cost, and by size. Cost is fairly irrelevant for a science game because funds don't really matter. Sorting by name can be helpful, but I actually tend to like to sort by mass because as we move through designing ships, you'll see that sometimes you want the lightest possible solution to a problem, because the more mass your ship has, the more thrust it takes to get into orbit or to move around once you are in space. So you want to try to have as low a mass as possible to do the things you want to do. So we're going to go back, grab our one and only command pod that we can. We're going to click on it, and move it up to the middle of our Whoop, hold on. There we go. Move it over to the middle of our palette. We're going to press Q to rotate it. So it's facing us. Oops, we're not quite in the center. All right, that's fine. We'll just move it over, slide. And remember I said we kind of build our ships backwards from the last thing we want to do. So the last thing we want to do with this ship is land safely. So we are going to put a parachute on it. Now, the last ship we had was just that solid booster attached to the command pod, which one parachute could handle fine, no problem, without breaking. If we wanted to land our entire ship this time, we would need a lot more parachutes, which are weighty. But what we can do is add a stack decoupler, and that basically separates two pieces of the ship with a small explosive device. You can see the direction the explosive goes when you're building ships a little later on in the game, and that matters, is the direction of the arrow. So what this is going to do is when we activate this stage, you can see down here stage 1 is the stack decoupler. It's going to ignite the tiny little explosive charge and blow the command pod and anything attached to it away from whatever we put beneath the stack decoupler. Which in this instance, so we could toss another solid fuel booster on here, or even this big guy. But really, I think we're kind of moving to a point where we're beyond ships that just fly straight up that you can't really control the thrust on. So we're going to need something with a little more refinement on it. So we're going to make a ship that uses liquid fuel. So you can see we have two fuel tank options. One is literally just double what the other one is in terms of its mass and the amount of liquid fuel and oxidizer it holds. That's how rockets work. The engine mixes liquid fuel and oxidizer with a heat source to burn it and produce a hot gas that shoots out the bottom of the rocket. And the force that gas exerts causes the rocket to go forward. So a fuel tank, and we have two liquid fuel engines, the Reliant and the Swivel. The Swivel is slightly heavier. You can see that its mass is 1.5. The Reliant is 1.25. We're going to go for a little bit heavier engine this time because the Swivel actually allows you a modicum of control. It'll tilt with the as you move the control stick around, so that allows you to basically steer your ship a little better because we specifically didn't unlock those winglets, which would have given us a little bit more control over our rocket. So we definitely are going to go with the Swivel engine. Now we could go like this, just with this as our ship right here, but we'll burn through this fuel pretty quickly that's in this tank, maybe 20 seconds or so, and we want to try to go a little higher than that. Our object this time is to actually try to get into space, which is to say beyond Kerbin's atmosphere, because that is where the good science is. So we are going to add more fuel tanks. In fact, we're going to add 4 of them, and then pop the engine on the bottom. So later, as we'll unlock more parts, we can basically build this exact same rocket with one large fuel tank instead of daisy chaining together 4 of them. Whenever you put fuel tanks next to each other like this, fuel automatically drains down from one into the next. So essentially what we've done is create one large fuel tank out of 4 smaller ones. The reason sometimes you want to do this is you can add incrementally smaller fuel tanks on top of big ones to maximize the amount of fuel you're using in any given situation. Without requiring a massive tank on top of it. And so you can right click on a fuel tank. You can actually see you can slide this back and forth and reduce or increase the amount of liquid fuel and or oxidizer in your tank. So you could launch with a rocket half full or half empty if you wanted to. There are reasons you might want to do that, but nothing that we need to worry about right now. So suffice to say that option exists for you. You could explore it if you'd like, but for what we're doing, we're just going to launch totally full. So you can see the engine is down there in stage 2. Awesome. So the last thing we want to do, and one of the main reasons we're launching, is science. So we're going to put this barometer, one of our new science experiments, right on the side. We're going to put this thermometer right on the other side. And the reason we're putting them here is it makes it super easy for our pilot to go out and collect data from those experiments. So we are also going to use the X button to put, you'll see what I've done here in just a second. There we go. So we've got 2 mystery goo containers, and I offset it just slightly because I'm going to put another 2 on here as well, which gives us 4 opportunities to run the mystery goo experiment. You can, if you have a scientist, oh right, the aerodynamics. So let's slap some fins on here. I'll explain the fins here. So you want your fins as close to the bottom of the rocket as possible for maximum amount of stability. As the rocket fuel drains out of the fuel tanks, the top of the rocket becomes lighter while the bottom of the rocket stays heavy. So you want your greatest amount of stability down here and control, which is why you tend to have, why the engine has the steering, why you put your fins down here, why your fins have things that help control them. Otherwise, your rocket tends to just kind of flop around. Floppy rocket syndrome is what it's called in the Kerbal forums. So definitely want to try to avoid that if you can. And the best way to do that, especially with a ship like this, is to put your fins and other aerodynamic stabilizers at the bottom along with your control engine. So, right. So let's, so we're doing the Garfield run through. So we're going to call this I Hate Mondays. And we will save it. We're just going to check our crew roster real quick. Okay, so we've got Jeb, he's a pilot. We're going to go ahead and let Jeb fly this mission, check our staging. Okay, we are good to go. So let's roll this guy out to the launch pad. So what I was saying is, for an experiment like the thermometer and the barometer, Jeb or any character can just get out and collect the data from it, and then the experiment resets and you can run it again. For an experiment like the Mystery Goo and the Science Junior, which we don't have, but we will eventually, you actually need to, you need a scientist to reset the experiment. So that's why the scientist class, I guess, exists. So we don't have one of those. We're not flying with a scientist, mostly because we want a pilot, so we have access to the stability assist, which you'll see us use in just a second. So you might remember that we had experiments to run on the launch pad. So let's do that first. We'll say log pressure data. All right, so there's a little bit of data from our atmospheric scan from the launch pad, and you can see it's now in the barometer. Same with the thermometer. Nominal temperatures, and we can also rerun the crew report. Oh no, I guess we can't. So we're just going to reset it. I don't know if you can see it, but it said 0 science for running the crew report, so I'm not even going to bother with it. I'm not too sure if the surface sample will be worth anything. Oh, 2.3. That's worth running. EVA, not worth anything, so we're just going to reset it. Not worry about it. So now that Jeb is out here, you can right click and take the data, which stores it in Jeb's, I guess, in his suit. But more importantly, it resets the experiment. So we are going to store all of our experiments. Everything is now stored in the pod, and we are going to board. All right, and I Hate Mondays is ready to go. So we have a liquid fuel engine this time, so we are going to put our throttle up to the max and ignite us in just a second. So I just want to explain this before I actually start flying. When we hit about 100 meters per second, I'm going to start turning so we go flying out over the ocean. And the reason for that is it's kind of sort of the optimal speed for beginning your turn through the atmosphere. Initially, you want to be punching straight up to kind of get above the thickest part of Kerbin's atmosphere. So once you hit about 100 meters per second, you should be high enough to begin that turn and have it really be effective for you. So we could talk a little bit more about that on the next round. So I'm just going to go ahead and launch us. So 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, spacebar launch, and we're off. Yeah, look at that. So we're going to hit 100 meters per second. actually about burned out anyway, so that's fine. 30,000 kilometers up, you can see we're still in the atmosphere. The atmosphere ends. There we go, and we're done. The atmosphere ends in Kerbal Space Program at about, at 70 kilometers. So I'm going to hit the M key, which changes our view. Now we are in map mode. So this shows us Kerbin beneath us. There is I Hate Mondays at a current altitude of 53,000 meters. We're headed towards the apoapsis, which is currently at 133,000 meters over Kerbin. So well into space. You can see as I kind of shift the view here, the apoapsis is the highest point in your orbit. The periapsis is the lowest point in your orbit. Right now we don't have a periapsis because we're going to be sliding back down into the atmosphere, hopefully not burning up as we come back in and hitting the ground. But the apoapsis is always your highest point. So as you're launching, you will have one of these. The way we'll show, I guess I'll show you how to circularize your orbit in the next tutorial. So suffice to say for now, that's that. Oh, we are in space. Oh, I forgot to run some science. Man, sitting here yakking. All right, so I'm going to observe our mystery goo. Yeah, in space near Kerbin. So we want a crew report from being in space near Kerbin. Very nice. We want a barometer. Read 0 as if it's in a vacuum. We want a temperature reading. And we definitely want an EVA report from being in space. Alright. Okay, so we're going to now grab our data from the barometer and the thermometer. And we're going to right-click, and we're going to take our data and then store our experiments. So that resets everything, so we are going back on board. So we've got a little bit of time before we hit our apoapsis. I think there's a couple of things I was explaining here. I'm going to go back to map mode. A couple of things I was explaining here that are probably worth knowing. So apoapsis, highest point in your orbit, or in this case the arc that could eventually become our orbit, should we have enough juice to do so, which we don't. What else? I was in the middle of talking about something else and then I lost my train of thought. Science experiments we talked about. I guess we didn't quite talk about those. So the scientists can reset experiments, but if you can get back to the ground, anything you land with that's attached to your ship that you recover at the end of a mission, you get credit for the data in there. So we could run 1, 2, 3, 4 of the mystery goo experiments and still get credit for all of them should we land our capsule without anything being destroyed, which I think is a pretty good stand a pretty good chance of doing that. So, oh, the other thing, prograde and retrograde on the stability assist here. So prograde means prograde is how you oh man, I don't know the exact terms. I just know what they do. So if you point prograde and ignite your engine, then you widen or lengthen your orbit. If you point retrograde and ignite your engine, you shorten it. So that's the long and the short, no pun intended, of what those things do. I can show you a little bit more, I guess probably in the next tutorial, so you have a better understanding. And I will go read up on what those terms mean, so I don't sound like I don't know what I'm talking about. Okay, we're almost there. Very nice. I'm going to turn the camera so you guys can just see. Whoops. There we go. There's our ship. Floating, floating, floating. The F2 button, if you're interested, gets rid of the UI so you can see the gorgeousness of flying in space. F2 again will bring it back. Looks like a pretty interesting little sunset over there. So, alright, we've got a little bit of time before we hit the ground, so I'm actually going to hit time warp to speed us up. So we're not just, I mean, it's cool, but, you know, 80, and boom. You'll notice it actually automatically took us back to 0 as soon as, so I'm going to go EVA because I need to grab an EVA report real quick, high in the atmosphere. Yeah. So you notice it went back to time warp of 0 as soon as I hit 70,000 meters. So I'm also going to blow our stage. And now I'm going to use the stability assist to point the ship retrograde. And what that does is point the curved bottom of the ship towards, I also want to grab the mystery goo from the upper atmosphere, so I'm going to do that too. And here we go. You can see that it's heating up. This is good. This is re-entry. This is exactly what we want to have happen. What we don't want to have happen is things get so hot that they start exploding. So pointing the ship, there we go. Pointing the pod down like this, so it's sort of curved bottom. It's curved like this. Will help keep that from happening. We don't have a heat shield on this ship. Kind of wishing I could put on here right now. But it doesn't seem to be heating up too awfully much. We are slowing down, so that's looking as intended. You can take a look here. There we go. Okay, great. All right, so now we're slowing down, pulling quite a few G's. Luckily, Jeb doesn't have seem to have enough body structure that that's much of a problem, I guess. He's a human being. He might have just gotten pulverized. Who knows? All right, so we're actually we can deploy our parachute at any time. We don't necessarily have to wait. I'm trying to kind of guess where we're coming in. Oh, good. We're coming in over some land, I think. Oh, darn. No, that's fine. All right, we're going to go ahead and whack. Parachute that out there. You can hear that explosion. That was the other part of our rocket hitting the ground. So if we hadn't slowed down, we would have impacted the ground just now. Experienced a sudden, unplanned disassembly, so to speak. I realized I forgot to grab a crew report. I'll grab one now. Oh, we're flying over Kerbal grass. That's cool. So, grab a crew report. Means we probably flying at Kerbal. No, alright, fair enough. We already grabbed that one. We can still grab a... Oh, that's right. We got stuff in here. So we are falling awfully slow. If I were to EVA right now. Probably not a good idea. Probably not a good idea. We're time warping so we can get to the ground a little faster. So we don't necessarily have to sit here watching the ship descend. We're coming up pretty quick. So let's go ahead. Go back to regular time. Okay. So there we are. We went into space. It's pretty cool. We are now descending. We're going to grab a little more science once we're on the ground because any one of Kerbin's biomes counts for more science once you're down here. We should hit the ground at a nice 5.7 meters per second. Boop. There we go. We're down. Pretty cool. So we can grab mystery goo from Kerbin's grasslands. Exciting. Okay. So, Jeb's going to go EVA. We're going to grab the data out of, whoops, grab the data out of the barometer and out of the thermometer. We are going to give ourselves an EVA report. Yep, that is true. Now, surface sample looks like dirt. It's dirt that's worth science points. That's what matters. We're going to take our data and store our experiments. Then board. Then log the temperature of the grasslands. Log the barometric pressure data of the grasslands. And since we're here, a quick crew report. That should be all the science we can do at the moment on this mission. So let's recover our vessel. There we go, 124 science, not too shabby. So I'm going to go ahead and unlock our next stuff right now, just to see what we can grab. Basic science, which gives us the science junior, some other stuff, a probe core if we need it. So we're going to grab that for sure. Flight control gives us what? Yeah, that's actually pretty useful stuff. Advanced rocketry. We have 79. This costs 45. Construction gives us struts. Okay. Struts would be super useful too. We can't do both, so I'm going to go ahead. Let's see. As you guys might tell, I did not plan this out. Flight control and stability. Okay. We will get struts next time, which are infinitely useful for keeping rockets from coming apart, but right now that's where we're at. So I guess join me back here next time when we figure out how to build our next ship and what it's going to do, which will... So if this was the first ship to go into space, our next ship will be the first ship to orbit Kerbal. So check back next time. Take it easy.